I'm just going to introduce the panel quickly. I think you all know them pretty well. Janine Ellis, co-founder of Boost Juice. You'd all know Boost. We've all been to Boost many times. She's written a couple of books, very successful in the business world. We know her from a TV show, Shark Tank. Welcome, Janine. Michael Anderson, returning to the Commercial Radio Australia Conference for the first time for quite a few years. You'd all remember Michael from his days at Austereo. Now we've got a shiny new gig in New Zealand. Welcome, Michael. And lastly, Anthony Everett from probably the hottest sport in Australia these days, the Big Bash League. He's the envy of sports administrators everywhere, with I think every game actually in prime time on TV, and not many sports can boast that, can they, Anthony? So
that's right.
Congratulations on that. Look, we'll talk a little bit about Game of Thrones. It's the How to Win It, the corporate Game of Thrones is the fancy title for this session. We won't get bogged down in it too much, so if you're hoping to hear a lot about the Lannisters, the Starks, Tyrells, or the Greyjoys, you could be a little bit disappointed. I'll sort of refrain from trying to talk about the Seven Kingdoms and linking them up to some of the various media companies, as tempting as that might be. We'll talk about who should be the White Walkers and all that sort of stuff. But the Game of Thrones is known for it's a power struggle. There's families at war. There's lots of violent murders. There's lots of violent sex. Lots of unsavoury goings on. But just let's look for the analogy straight away. How tough can it get in the business world? Michael, start with you.
Oh, thank you.
You're a bit of a fan. You watch a bit of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, look.
Do you ever sort of look at that and think, oh, I've experienced something like that?
Oh, no, I don't want to be talking about looking back because people work out who I'm talking about. Look, it gets really tough and it actually gets very destructive as well. So I've seen lives sort of really, really damaged, and I've seen careers destroyed by the Game of Thrones sort of style that goes on within organisations. And it just, it is something you need to be aware of. And you don't need to play the game, but you certainly need to know the rules of the game.
Do you think it's something people in business aren't always conscious of, as the what can happen from the ramifications of some of the things they do?
Yeah, look, I think it's no different to when you read or hear about bullying at school, you know, and you think surely those kids know that what they're doing is causing such damage and such pain, but the kids sort of don't. They're just doing what they do. And I think once you get into some corporate organisations, unless the culture is really strong and it's really well sort of developed, then people go through and do things without actually ever thinking about what it might or might not be doing, or in some cases, not caring.
Where can it be roughest? I mean, you came up through sales, ended up in the top job running the joint. What's rougher? Could it be sales? Could it be content? Could it be marketing? What's the...
Yeah, all of the above. People are people. So it doesn't matter whether they're creative people or they're analytical people or they're nice people or bad people. Everybody's got the nuances here, and situations will trigger different responses for different types of personalities. So wherever you've got people congregating, it doesn't really matter in which sector it is. You'll find it can get pretty tough sometimes.
Just quickly, one more thing from you. The brawling, it seems, can be almost as fierce in-house as it is between one family or one company and the other. Does that happen?
Yeah, and that's usually driven by passion. Passion and a desire to win, or desire to be right, or desire to get it right. And so, again, a good culture, very happy for that brawling to occur. It's just have to have some guidelines around that particular style of game.
Janine, your corporate career, you sort of built it, didn't you? I mean, you didn't sort of come into an organisation, you structured it. presumably how you wanted it to go. But
Yes.
did it always go according to the rule book you were writing?
No, of course it never does. Never goes right. You don't know what the hell you're doing when you start a business from scratch. Look, I think at the end of the day, though, you've got your goal. You know, like the Game of Thrones, it's actually everyone wants to sit on that really uncomfortable-looking, funny chair, right? And then they all have the 7 kingdoms. You know, our goal was to create a brand that was loved and known in the Australian and world market. And in radio, it's, you know, that they have their goals of, you know, ratings, you know, rate or die. And, you know, culture is something that people throw around all the time. At the end of the day, though, a successful company actually creates its own culture as well, because people want to be part of the winning team. But you have to hire the right people, which have the right culture that you want for the business for you to achieve what you need to achieve. You know, radio, you know, particularly in the early days, was tough and, you know, and aggressive, and it was war. You know, there was one story that I probably shouldn't tell. When you know, to you know, programmers, you know, it was you know, Austereo against Triple M, and it was, you know, how do we get the ratings? It was no matter what. And there was I think it was Triple M were launching their big, you know, their big hurrah, their big, you know, program that was going to actually achieve great results and great ratings. You know, the 2 program directors, you know, my husband and another guy, went in dressed up as executives, saw what they were doing, went back that night, redid it, and launched it before them, you know, and it was, you know, but it was about whatever it takes, and I think a little bit of that, you know, rivalry. You know, little did they know, 6 weeks later, Triple M bought Austereo, not a career limiting move really, and you know, it was really that, you know, but back then, and even now, it is, you get judged, like TV, every single day you get the ratings. Radio, every single day, 6 weeks, you get judged whether you're any good or not. And there's nowhere to hide. And with businesses, we get the same thing. You know, every single day we track our sales on year. So the objective is to grow. How do you grow that? And it's with right people and right culture.
I guess your equivalent of the ratings is the cash register at the end of the day. You know, the cash register doesn't lie. You know, this is what's happening out there. But and things change, though, don't they? The climate changes. I'm thinking things that, you know, back in the day in radio just wouldn't be accepted. You couldn't get away with, wouldn't be done now. What year did you open the first Boost store?
Our first Boost was 16 years ago, in 2000.
Years. I guess in that 16 years too, the business climate's probably even changed as well, hasn't it?
Oh, look, this era of change, if you change or rate or die, forget that, change or die. You know, we are in an era that we've never seen before. And so quite often, you know, I'm, you know, 50 years old. So I've been in the business where I started business when we just introduced a fax. So we're now in an era where we are changing at the speed of knots, and industries that existed don't even exist anymore. And so radio and TV and all those mediums have they have to keep looking ahead of how and what the consumer is doing and how they're acting and adjust accordingly. And it's tough.
Anthony, Big Bash League, very hot property, primetime TV, big ratings. I'm guessing some of the biggest battles might become your media rights deals. I mean,
yeah, I think before we get to media rights deals, a bit of a confession. I've actually never seen an episode of the Game of Thrones in my life, so bear with me on the analogies. I'm very good on The Bachelor, though. So if we, Alex, Nikki, Ellen, if you can just give me some parallels.
Bear that in mind as we
exactly.
go through.
But look, I think, you know, sport generally, you know, sport, the Game of Thrones, I assume there are a lot of similarities there, and sport's a great industry to work in. I think you're never short of something to talk about at a friend's barbecue. You know, my kids are pretty well decked out in their Australian cricket gear, causes them some problems at in the nets in terms of expectations of how good they are. They're not very good, but I digress. You know, sport, great industry, but, you know, very, very political, incredibly passionate people, you know, as we touched on, and passion often gets in the way of logic and pragmatism. You know, Cricket Australia is a hugely traditional organisation. It's one of the great strengths of Australian cricket, but that does make it difficult to launch the Big Bash League, which is not exactly your standard cricket product. So yeah, it's a fairly complex environment. You then overlay, I think, the Australian sports marketplace, and I heard an interesting analogy at the start of the year. I think the Australian economy is somewhat similar to California in terms of population and GDP. In California they have 4, it might be 5 professional sports teams: the Lakers, the Clippers, the Raiders, a couple of others. In Australia, we have over 50 professional sports teams. And when you think of AFL, NRL, the clubs, A-League, cricket, and others, so small market, very, very competitive, and that does create challenges. But I think it also creates opportunities. And if we look at what's happening in women's sport at the moment, my previous role was with the ANZ Netball Champs, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 5 years ago. Really challenging time to get media coverage. We had a great partner in Channel 10 at the time. But the landscape has changed so quickly because of that competition. So we've seen the AFL launch their women's league, which will take place in February next year. Obviously, the WBBL was launched last year. We've got a new netball league. And because of that competition, the bar's been raised, and it's become a great thing for women's sport generally.
Cricket's changed a lot, hasn't it? You've been in the sports, 20 years in the industry. You think back, you look at some of those the days of Kerry Packer, the Cricket Australia was a very different organisation, I guess, back then to what it is now. There's big money involved. How conscious is cricket about the sort of time constraints on people to consume all these different sports, all these different opportunities?
Very conscious, and that was why the BBL was launched 5 years ago. We had a fairly alarming insight, which demonstrated that there was a growing disconnect between our younger audience, 5 to 15-year-olds, and their passion for cricket generally. So look, we were fortunate. We've got the BBL and the different products. It's a pretty well-worn marketing formula in terms of different products for different audiences. I think when we launched it, though, we had to be very, very disciplined in the sense that, for those of you who've seen a Big Bash League game, it's a game of cricket, and we're blessed with some of the best players from around the world. Cricket Australia, there's 200 people that work there, and by and large, most of us are cricket fans, yet this particular product is aimed at talking to a very, very different audience. So I guess in terms of what we're doing, it's trying to get out of the cricket bubble that we live in and think about what would this mean to the new fan. We had an example of when the BBL was launched, and we literally had a blank sheet of paper to come up with this new competition. One of the most contentious points, and this is serious stuff, was the colour of the uniforms, the colour of teams. And the state associations, Cricket Victoria, like, well, our teams will be blue. In South Australia, our teams will be red. You've no idea the amount of time that was invested in basically breaking that traditional approach. We almost didn't have an Adelaide team in the competition. They almost walked away on the insistence that their team was red, because that's what South Australian sport is. That's what the Redbacks were. As it turns out, their team is now blue. But it is funny how quickly it changes, though. 2 years later, everyone is loving the Strikers. They're blue. It's their favourite colour. But taking people on that journey is a challenge.
Taking people on the journey, the people who watch Game of Thrones, some people get chucked in a prison. Not many. The usual way of dealing with your foes is just do you off them, right? They're gone. And there's some very elaborate ways of killing people, from being mauled by an savage dog.
Or go to a wedding.
Yep, exactly, yeah. So all sorts of stuff happens. But in the real world, in the business world, when you've just got the wrong person, someone you don't get on with, whether it's a personality clash or that's just the wrong person for the job, is the first temptation, is it to try and, turn it around and make it work with them, or is it often just easier to just get rid of them? Janine?
Get rid
in the unlikely event you've picked the wrong person.
Pick the wrong person.
Yeah.
Look, the reality is, I don't know anyone out there that goes, I wish I hold on to them for longer. I think everyone says, I wish I actually got rid of them quicker. And it's not that the people are bad people, it's just sometimes the mix is wrong. And I think the first thing you do have to do is look at yourself. Have I put the person in the right role? Have I given the right resources? And if you feel confident you've done that, then maybe they're not the right person, because the reality is the only way you can win in business, the only way is having the great people. If you do not have the right people in the right roles, you're kidding yourself. And the most dangerous people, which we were talking about backstage, is the ones that can talk the talk. The ones that can give you every excuse and gives you that confidence. You walk out the room, and quite often, this is where it gets dangerous with boards, they don't know that they get so far away from the cold face that they just believe the people in the boardroom go, he's got it all under control, that's fine, we walk out, it's fine, and for another month, and you come down and it's absolute mess.
Yeah.
So it's the people who talk the talk. So really, no, you can't fake results. At the end of the day, the person actually gets the results. And normally they get the results by getting the right people, creating the right culture with the right product and promoting it effectively.
But can you overthink getting the right people? Because you hear about some really bizarre and long HR processes that go through and all sorts of questionnaires. And
Yeah.
do you think that gets overdone at the other end?
Look, I totally think so. I think that at the end of the day, you've got to go through a certain process, but gut instinct and making sure that, because quite often, sometimes you can't see on their piece of paper that X factor or the drive. Sometimes you can't, and so I'm a firm believer is give people a crack. And if they fly, great. If they die, then let them move on to other opportunities.
The old trial period comes in very handy.
Absolutely, but giving people a go. And the other thing we do badly is sometimes we set people up to fail. We don't mean to, but there's some people in lower positions that you go, okay, they're good. Let's put them in that role, and they're just not capable of it. And I'm certainly been at fault for that.
Yeah. Anthony, you were on very early days at the Big Bash League. I'm guessing it was a smaller staff than it was now. You would have been confident in its success, but I guess you've had to staff up, have you, as it's grown? And they're probably not easy people to come by, that sort of sports specialists.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you use the term sports specialist, and I think in the first couple of years of BBL, and it was no difference to any other small business, it was just a scramble. We needed 8 teams, we needed a sponsor, we needed a broadcaster, and our focus was very, very operational. We had a short lead time. We had about a year to get from the announcement of BBL to the first game, and the deadline for that first game wasn't going to move. It was probably only a couple of years later, and I think, to be fair, BBL had a little bit of an identity crisis. We kind of intuitively knew we wanted to be different, but I think we tried too hard. 2 years in, a lot more comfortable in our own skin, and this concept of understanding what is it the industry that we're actually in. Are we in the cricket industry, the sport industry? And we had a really important, I guess, a light bulb moment that essentially we're in the entertainment industry, and our purpose, our why is all about bringing joy and happiness to families in summer. I think once we settled on that piece, the recruitment piece in terms of who we're looking for and the type of people we need was actually quite different. The last thing we needed was sports administrators and cricket people. We've got plenty of those. So when we started to recruit, remember we had a fan engagement role, which is quite sort of jargon, fan engagement, but we reached out and we had 1 million applications from footy clubs. What we got more excited about was we had an application from a lady at Disney. We had an application from a young guy who was at Warner Brothers Movie World. And that's the type of people that we decided we need. But until we got to the point where we really understood what was core business to us, what was the end game, arguably we were actually bringing the wrong people in to drive the business.
What about when you might have to split with somebody who hasn't necessarily done the wrong thing? And set me straight if I've got the wrong side of this, but you look at Fox Sports, which was a media partner with you, arguably helped you build a pretty good product, then without really doing anything wrong, that you had to move on, didn't you? And you partnered with 10, who I guess have done maybe an even better job, but how difficult was that?
Yeah, I mean, Fox did everything right. I mean, credit to them, they backed the BBL from the outset. They broadcast the first 2 seasons and did an amazing job in terms of laying a foundation. I think the challenge there was, again, you think back to the objective of the BBL, it was all about broadening our fan base, diversifying, attracting new fans. That platform was challenging for us in the sense that in terms of their penetration into households, it had some limitations, and of those people who had Foxtel and Fox Sports, they're probably cricket sports fans anyway. So the opportunity for us to actually move to a free-to-air platform in the first instance was very appealing. I guess probably the secret ingredient, though, was the way that 10 then went about it, in the sense that there were a lot of questions asked at the time as how 10 going to go broadcasting a game of cricket. They've had no experience. Channel 9 have been doing it for years. And a gentleman by the name of Dave Barham, the head of sport at Channel 10, was very smart, and he decided early on we need to be different. We need to do this differently. We don't really want to compete with the establishment. And they went and broadcast the game very differently, which was very consistent with our mandate of family fun. So, yeah, I mean, to this day, we've got a good relationship with Fox Sports. We certainly recognise the role that they played in getting the league off to a great start. But sometimes in business, you're at that fork in the road, and we needed to make a decision that was consistent with the strategy of BBL.
Yeah, and and tended that Barham had great track record, didn't he? Of course, he's worked with the AFL, and they invested, didn't they, in the right commentators, which gave them, I guess, some instant credibility in that space.
Yeah, that's right. I think that was such an important... their first announcement was that they had signed Adam Gilchrist as a commentator, which sent a very strong message. But they had a really open mind. They came to us and they said, what can we do to help you? Here's a cheque for the rights. We're going to show you your games. But I remember one of the very first conversations we had is, look, let's assume you can cover the game of cricket. We think you'll have that right. What we want you to do is show as much of the fans, as much of the smiling family, the smiling faces of families, little boys, little girls, mum and dad having a great night out. That is as important to us as showing the cricket itself. And they really brought the event experience to life. And that was 3 years ago, and I think they've built on that year on year.
Michael, how many years at Austereo?
20.
20?
Yeah.
20 years. How did the end come? Was it your choosing? Was it, you'd survived very well. Had you thought it was time to get out? Would you have stayed a bit longer if you could have?
Yeah, look, I think timing usually tells you, and it had been a large part of my career. So there's always a temptation to stay on. There's always a challenge. There's always, the renewal of team. But I think if you're honest with yourself, you see what type of challenge it is. And the challenge that was coming up for Austereo at that point in time was not one that I was particularly either good at or was appealing. And so, you usually let the timing dictate, really.
Had there been temptations prior? Did you?
I think if you do anything for 20 years, there's got to be times where you go home on a Friday and go, that's it, And 9 times out of 10, I'm really happy that by Monday I'd recovered and hung in. But it does test your resilience, and so yes, every time I thought it was time, then Austereo just was able to do something. It was able to merge with Triple M and a whole new challenge. It was able to open up Malaysia, a whole new challenge. It was able to IPO, a whole new challenge. So every time you think you get there, then there was something else to keep you focused. So plenty of thoughts, but no action.
Getting that top job, was that ever an ambition, or did it just sort of, you just kept doing what you liked doing and you got there? Did you have to claw your way to the top? You have to push others aside?
Yeah, you should see the bodies that were just strewn around as I was clawing my way to the top. No, look, for me it was one of those moments where it was probably a few months before where I thought, I'm really happy where I am, because I was looking at the stress of the CEO that was there. And I was looking at the pressures and I'm seeing this person deconstruct a little bit with all of that effort, and I'm going, I've been doing my role for 13 years. I'm on top of it. The challenges are ones that we know we're capable of winning, and so I just really settled into the fact that I was very comfortable, and that's of course when it all changed. So, but having been offered the role, it was never going to be a no.
Yeah. Were you careful not to move too quickly as the boss, or did you want to bring in your own people to sort of protect you straight away? What happened?
That was one of the lessons I've learned. I moved so quickly.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I think we got rid of 5 breakfast shows in 12 months or 14 months. And you just don't do that. So I learned a great lesson, which was by the time we'd actually started fires in every state, of how difficult it was to actually then put those fires out. So yes, one breakfast show a year for 5 years would have been a really smart thing to do. But no, I jumped in thinking that we could just fix everything. So good lesson.
Because so the old network idea, you don't change them all at once. Just familiarity helps in your ad sales, regardless maybe of what your ratings are telling you. Just persevere a bit longer than.
Yeah, look, I think I think there's a different challenge when you're a market leader as well. It's really easy to know what your next step is when you're seeing who the market leader is and you're going, there's a weakness, there's an opportunity. If we did that, that would create a gap. When you're the market leader, you actually have to create those yourself to make sure that your competitor isn't doing that. So to an extent, you're never comfortable with the way it's working because you know that you're creating. There's got to be a level of complacency creeping in there, and your competitor, if they're good, is noticing and planning.
Janine, the female women, particularly in season 7 of Game of Thrones, the
there
female
someone
characters, the female characters in Game of Thrones
Yes.
have proven to be the strongest survivors.
Yeah.
as
Not
I said
surprising.
recently, Daenerys, the two Starks, Sansa and Arya,
Yep.
and Cersei, a little bit unhinged, but
Yep.
you know,
She's focused. She has a mission. She has an outcome.
Can you see admirable traits in all of them?
Look,
Or parts of the
Look, I
the
think
makeup?
if you relate war to business or sport to business, there's absolutely similarities. You know, all of them have a goal. They all have different goals, but they all have a goal they need to achieve, and they need to get it. You know, Arya is to kill a certain amount of people, right? Whatever that goal is, so she has done.
For her survival, though, there's a reason.
No, for revenge.
Yeah, but they'll get her if she doesn't get them.
Yeah. So I think that every single one of them have a goal. You know, Cersei is to make sure that she maintains the Game of Thrones. She wants to game. So you then work back from your goal and who do all of those people need to be on their team to achieve their goals? And business is no different. I mean, when I was a director of Hawthorn Football Club, one of the things I really loved was looking at the objective was, which is of course winning a grand final. And then you look at their teams, how many superstars we've got, how many great players, how many ones that we need to get rid of, unfortunately. What do you need to do, irrelevant if they're the nicest blokes on the planet or not, what do you need to do to achieve the grand final? And sometimes those hard decisions aren't that popular, but if you have the end game on goal all the time, then you'll achieve it. And you know, even when you look at Game of Thrones or a football team or a business, you can actually see the pattern. And I think without stopping, planning, adjusting, getting the right people on board, and then execution, then you won't get there. But you're not going to make friends. You're not going to be popular. You can't. If you want to make friends, don't be in business.
Yeah. You mentioned the Hawthorn Football Club. We can't let that go without delving just a little bit deeper. How involved was the board in player?
Look, Alistair called me every Saturday. What do you think I should do, Janine? We're with the players. I'm sure that was the reason we won the grand final. Look, you know, what I thought was really classically funny is I don't know much about football, and I had Jeff Karras, Jeff Kennett on the board, and it was a great board, and you know, clearly they're a hugely successful team. But what I loved was, Alistair would come in and talk about the players and the game, and they'd all start with, "Now, Alistair, I don't know anything about football." But, right, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Because Alistair, what Alistair was great, talk about leadership and goals. He was a young guy, had never been a coach before. He came into Hawthorn. He studied every single sporting team in the world to work out what could he take as traits and put it into a game to be different. And consequently, like, the science of football is fascinating. You know, by the time you look at how old, how big, how far they jump, how muscly they are, or you put all of that into a pot, then they get an algorithm to say when their premiership period is. Are they in building? Are they in premiership period? Or are they in rebuilding? And we actually won our first grand final our period. And the reason being is Alistair, being such a great leader, he inspired greatness in his teams, but he did it differently, sometimes much to the horror of the board, who go, "We've been doing it this way all the time. You kick, don't freaking pass all the time." You know. So, but consequently, you know, Alistair Clarkson, as a phenomenal leader, has now been a change agent in football. A lot of his assistant coaches are now coaches. So, you know, it's just thinking differently. And how do you take something that's been around for 150 years and, you know, chuck it up? But, you know, it was a great time.
Identifying people that will work. I mean, you do that, you look on Shark Tank, you see every week there's another stream of people desperate to get their ideas away. you're probably not much involved with franchisee selection these days, I'm not sure, but I guess you were in the early days, were you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I said yes. I met with every single franchise, the first 150 franchisees I met with. Look, and what you do, you go for, whether it's a senior executive or it's a franchise partner or on Shark Tank. I mean, I think what's good about you get older, you can smell the bunny boiler, right? Now, for anyone who's under a certain age, it was a movie. So you can sort of see a psycho, and you don't want to play with psychos. You want to play with people that are, passionate and driven, and also, you know what? Like Michael said, it gets tough, and unless you've got the drive and that inner strength to actually get there, well, then you're not going to do it. Like I've got 4 kids, right? Some days I don't want to be a mum. Some days I don't want to be a businesswoman. Some days I don't even get out of bed. But it's that drive of, it is a hard day, how am I going to get over it? And if they haven't got that resilience, then you don't want them to play in your team. It's like football, right? Going back to Hawthorn. The guys, there was a time when we were starting winning grand finals, they were offered, our players, a lot more money to go to other clubs. The reason they stayed is they wanted to be with a good team. And that's with business. You create a high-performance culture, people want to play with you. It's no different to being at school and wanting to be in the best team to play with. People want to... And when you're in a great team, the bar keeps getting higher. And when the bar keeps getting higher, you perform at a pace that, that is inspiring for the other people that you're working with.
Yeah. Anthony, we were talking about the women characters of Game of Thrones. Is sport just catching up in a way, realising, hey, there's a women play sport, and actually there's a lot of people who like watching it, What's taken them so long?
That's a good question. I think, I spoke about tradition before, and perhaps, cricket 150 years ago was sort of born into a different era. Having said that, it was 150 years ago. I think that, in our case, a lot of it has traditionally been driven by short-term commercial returns, and the Australian men's cricket team, was perhaps at the forefront of that. But certainly our strategy at the moment, the vision for Australian cricket is to be Australia's favourite sport and a sport for all Australians, and I think tennis would have their interpretation of that, the AFL has their, everyone's trying to do largely the same thing. You kind of got 50% of the population that's kind of important in achieving that end goal. So, while cricket has got a long history of women playing the game, certainly our position at the moment is to really elevate the role of females in the game, both as participants and as fans. And the thinking behind the WBBL is interesting. A couple of years ago, as we looked around the crowds at Big Bash games, and there were a lot of young girls in the stadium, which was fantastic, 10, 12-year-old girls. The problem we had, though, was that they would sort of look around and all they would see is male heroes or role models looking back at them. We had a women's competition, but it was kind of disconnected. So we rebranded the existing state competitions to directly align them with the BBL. So, to the young girl who goes to the MCG this summer, she can see Meg Lanning in the Melbourne Stars uniform, and that's an aspirational role model for her. So, yeah, I think it's certainly long overdue. And as I said earlier, I think there's a tipping point, and I reckon we've reached it, and it's now become a competition between the sports, which is absolutely fantastic. I think if you look at what's happened in the last 12 months alone with the Matildas at the Olympics, we had the rugby sevens team winning the gold medal, netball with their new competition, and the other sports. It's watch this space. I think it's only going to become more competitive in the next 12 months, and that's a great thing for women's sport.
Yeah, because you worked in netball, didn't you, too? And it's interesting what Nine is going to be doing with the netball. Do you think that they might be surprised with the amount of interest if they have? Because I guess you've got to handle it carefully, don't you? But
yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line between doing something for women's sport because it seems to be the right thing to do. I think what Nine are doing is backing a great product. They obviously have belief in the fact that they've got great athletes on the court, great talent off the court in terms of articulate spokespeople. It's a great game to watch. There's already a strong level of commercial interest, and they're backing it accordingly. I don't think they're doing it as a favour to anyone. Commercial TV networks, and I'm sure radio's no different, a competitive beast themselves. So, I wish netball all the best, and they've made huge strides in the last 10 years, and I think that'll be a huge success.
Look, we're nearly out of time. It's hard to believe already, but I'll end with a question for each of you. I'll start with you, Michael, so the other two get a little bit of time to think about it. But the people are motivated by lots of different things in the Seven Kingdoms on Game of Thrones. And Michael, you stepped away from the CEO role and you were on boards, probably a handful of boards, but you've jumped back in to it's probably going to be a bit of a challenge. Your predecessor had some rough times over there.
A bit. It's just a bit of a challenge.
In New Zealand at MediaWorks. So what motivated you to put your hand up?
Good question. Look, I think there's a lot of things you get as a director. You get a lot of intellectual stimulation. You get that variety, and so you can put your mind to different things. And occasionally, you get to feel like you're making a difference. And you do get to see disruption across a whole range of different platforms. And you get a lot of time off. So that's good. But what you don't get is you don't get that sense of emotional commitment. You don't get that sense of team, and you really don't get that consistent feeling of being part of a team where you actually understand what your contribution is and the way it all comes together. And so that was, for me, that was the appeal, to work with a business that has some clear challenges, and in a lot of ways is ready to come together and work as a team. So there I am in New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. Janine, very successful. You could probably go off and do whatever you wanted to, but what keeps you, go to the office?
Look, the reality is money is an outcome of doing something you love and it's passionate. So just because you get a financial reward doesn't mean you stop the real desire to what you do is creating something really special. In a way,
does that drive it more, maybe?
It does. Like, I remember catching up with Roger Gillespie from Baker's Delight, and he said, Janine, I'm in a constant state of depression. I said, why is that? And he goes, every time I see a store, it's not perfect. And it's true. I'd go to a store and people are going, oh, wow, it looks great. And I'm going, far out. The register's not right. This is not right. This is not right. And you it's never right. And I think that what gets you up in the day is every day is that excitement of being out of creation. Everyone needs purpose. People sort of go, let's retire and play golf. Oh my God, shoot me now. What you need, what I love is a problem that you've got to solve, or and there's a problem every day in business, and so success comes from that desire to actually achieve greatness. And have we achieved greatness? We're on our way, but we've got a long way to go. But to think that we've got this iconic brand in Australia that sort of started with an idea of wouldn't it be good if we create something really healthy in the market, to where it is now is really exciting. But what gets me up every day is the excitement and passion of business.
Anthony, it's job done, isn't it? BBL, hotter sport, every game in prime time, good rights deals, everybody probably throwing money at you. What's left to do?
There's plenty left to do. That's not the case. If anyone wants to throw money at us, we'd welcome that. Plenty left to do. I mean, we've had a great start to the competition. Our view is it's not a race. The end game is not in 5 years' time. We want sustainability to both BBL and WBBL. Very exciting, product to be part of, but huge untapped potential. So, at the core of that, and this is, I guess what gets me out of bed in the morning. Business is very serious and sport is increasingly serious. For something that started off as a leisure pastime, it's ridiculously serious. But, the BBL is fun. And there was a book that came across our desk a few years ago. It's called Fun is Good. It's kind of a hard premise to argue against. Fun is good. So we want the BBL to be fun as a brand, as an experience for our fans, but we're also allowed to have fun at work as well. And that's, I guess, the mantra that we're trying to build on at the moment. And we think, as a competitive advantage to attract talent, sure, it's a great sporting competition, it's a great property, but to be able to enjoy yourself as part of that is a wonderful thing also.
Wonderful. Well, that's it. We done, Joan? Is it?
It was a great session. Thank you very much. Nice to see Michael back.